All right, good afternoon, Yelm High School. We are excited to host the Professional Pathway Career Exploration event to help all of you connect your learning to career opportunities here at Yelm High School. So I am Miss McLean, and I'm excited to have Kelly Green with South Puget Sound Community College with me today. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone this is going to be recorded. So if you are missing part of it, you can go back and actually rewatch that. We have the next 30 minutes to learn about this career field and the education that's needed to enter and grow within that industry. And we will be monitoring any questions. So in that little Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, go ahead and type your questions. We'll be monitoring those, and I can go ahead and ask Kelly as we go. So let's get started so our students can learn about the various professions and how to prepare for their future. So Kelly, do you want to go ahead and tell us about your career field and how it is to get started and the growth opportunities, pay, and just a general overview of what you do every day?
Sure. Yeah. Happy to give kind of a general overview. Is it okay if I pop my slides up
Yeah.
now, and I may pop them down on occasion?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So officially, my title is Executive Community Relations Officer, which is a really long way of saying that I do a little bit of public relations. I oversee our public relations, our marketing team. I work with events. It's kind of a whole host of things, but the way that I look at it is that community relations is really about, building and supporting relationships with all of our college communities. So that's everybody from our students and staff and faculty, to legislators that we work with, to our trustees, to the people who live in our service area. So it really includes kind of everybody, but with thought as to, how those different people will interact with our campus and interact with us. The picture that I put up here is, what a lot of people think of when they think about community relations or public relations. We do things like ribbon cuttings and grand openings, and we have to worry about things like who's in the photo, who's not in the photo, can someone track down this trustee, all of those things. And so it is a fairly staged photo, but I feel like it's a pretty good illustration of one of the things that people typically associate with what we do.
Yeah.
To break it out just a little bit more, officially, a big part of my job is marketing. So people who work on my team, we handle all of our social media accounts for the college. We do our website. We do all of our brand development and brand building. So if you see, Success Amplified, which I had on that first screen, is kind of our brand. And so everything that went into creating and developing that, we do. And then, things like our publications. So our catalog, any print materials that you see every quarter, everyone in the county or most folks should see a mailer called Sound Waves. That all comes out of my office. On the PR side, it's more about sharing the story of who the college is and what we do. So things like press releases, our relationships and work with the media. Officially, I'm our college spokesperson. We deal with all of our crisis and emergency communications. So we've been pretty busy this year with all of the early morning emails that people get about COVID. It is part of my job to engage with our outside community, participate in, on boards, at events, just kind of be out and about and help build some of that awareness about the college. And then I do a lot of events and presentation. The last piece for me, and this is more particular to my job, and the executive part of my title is that I am part of our leadership team at the college. So I answer directly to the president and serve on a team of 8 other folks who kind of oversee all the major areas of the college. We all work together for kind of, big decision-making, our executive decision-making, our ongoing strategy, planning for where the college is going to go for the next 1 and 5 and 10 years. I support our president's communication, so writing speeches, some of those kinds of things. And then, like I say, I kind of lead on the communications effort if we're ever in any kind of emergency or crisis. So the photo I put up there is legislative advocacy is part of my job. Our president does a ton of that, but I support him with getting to know our legislators, making sure that they know where our priorities are as a college and where we need their support and where we can support them. And so I had an opportunity to go to DC for a conference a couple of years ago and got to, go to then Congressman Heck's office, also meet with Senator Murray and some of her staff. And so some of that kind of stuff. So for me, that was a fun part of that.
Yeah, that's.
So I'll pause there if there's.
Yeah. So, I think one thing that just popped into my mind, so you obviously are in a leadership position. How many people do you have working with you and underneath you that you're responsible for every day?
Yeah, so I should know this off the top of my head, but it's changed a little bit, but around 9 to 10 between, so we're really lucky in terms of the staff that we have, because not every college has as many as we do, but I have a person who kind of leads decision making and strategy around our advertising, social media, kind of all of those pieces, as well as a content writer that supports her and that work. So somebody who, drafts all of the press releases, writes a lot of the web content. Our web content manager lives in my office. So he, does all of the things sort of actual development for the website. We have an in-house videographer, which is amazing. And she's amazing. And not a lot of colleges get that. We have a graphic designer who also is fabulous. So to have all those people full-time is really helpful. And then I have an administrative assistant, and I also oversee one of the ways that a lot of people interact with the college is through events that are on campus. So whether that's your baseball team hosting a fundraiser on our campus, that is considered to be a part of our public relations effort or our community relations effort. And so actually our event staff, the folks who rent out the facilities and do that work, are also on my team.
Wow, that's incredible. So It sounds like you have a lot of very specific skill sets working with you in this career path. But what would you say are some of the most kind of general skill sets that your team have that we can try and facilitate and help foster growth in, just in a general candidate?
Yeah, and I happened to prepare a slide for just such a question. So, I mean, my job really is all about communication, and you'll see that I kind of stress writing in this slide. And it is, I know a lot of, especially students, writing feels like a chore sometimes. You always ask the question, when will I ever use this in real life, kind of thing. And I'll tell you, I have never used calculus in my job, but every single day I think about, my speech teacher, my newspaper editor, and all of the folks who really stressed for me, just building those fundamental writing skills that would help me understand how to communicate, especially, as my career went on, how to communicate more complex concepts, because there's a lot of decisions that we have to make and things that we have to do that part of my job is to help those make sense to, those audiences that I talked about at the beginning. So what does this mean for our students, and how do we communicate that? Because it's going to be different in a lot of ways from how we share it with our staff, or how we share it on social media. So writing really is, the thing I do more than anything else. But some of the other ones, that are harder to pinpoint, the ability to think and act pretty quickly. A lot of what I do is deadline driven, and a lot of it is response to something that's happening in real time, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. My entire team, we have to be able to react, and so that's something that we work on a lot, is like, okay, here's our plan, and we're going to work to this plan, but we're also just going to be ready at a moment's notice to be like, either we have to drop this plan or we have to change this plan and be able to move forward. So we have to work really hard to not kind of dwell on things that come at us, problems that pop up, changes. It is just part of what we do. Flexibility, which is in that same vein. There are things I've had to kind of learn on the fly in this job. There is no class or degree or thing that could have prepared me for everything I do every day. So just being able to roll with that and do my best. Patience, for sure. Creativity, which for me is one of the funnest things, right, is being able to think creatively about how we say, what we say, how we say it, uh, trying new things, trying things that colleges haven't done before, taking things that other, that some of my colleagues have done and making them better. That kind of creativity is just, it's really invigorating. And then strategic thinking. And what I mean by that, because I know that's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but what that means for me is if we're going to take the time, for example, to profile a student, right? We're going to have our writer talk with a student, and we're going to get some photos of that student, and we're going to hear about them. Part of that strategy is, okay, what all are we going to do with that? Because it's not a good use of our time or their time if we only use that story in one place. So part of what we do is, okay, what are all the things we're working on and how can we use some of this? And if we get video along with those photos, then what else can we add on? And how can we use that again and again? And really in the end, though, what is the, strategically, what is the purpose of that? Like, what's our goal? To make sure that everything we do, fits in line with our mission, fits well with what we're trying to say, and that we make best use of our resources, because we are we're a state-funded college, which basically means, we're not rich. We don't have the budget that a private four-year school has. So we really try to do a lot with what we have.
Sure, thank you. That sounds incredible. And what are some things that you think students now, whether they be freshmen just starting out their higher academic pathway, or seniors getting ready to graduate, what are some things that, if they're listening to you right now and loving everything that this job has to offer, what are some things that they do to prepare? And I guess two-part question, do you have SPSDC students working with your staff, or are you all professional level?
Yeah, so we work really hard to try to make sure that we engage students in really meaningful work with our office. That comes with its challenges because, our students come and go fairly quickly. We're a 2-year campus. And so what we really look for, a lot of times we have students approach us, and what we'll do is work with them on what is it they're really trying to get at, and what do we have in that vein. We had a student last year who was particularly interested in social media. And then as she was in our office, she found out that what she really loved was more features writing, like more magazine writing. So we actually said, okay, great, let's build on that, and came up with some projects where she did some writing for us that, we kind of get to keep in our coffers and keep rolling out. And so it's some really solid stuff for her resume. She gets to show that she did this real work. And for us, it's a benefit because we get some work that our full-time people don't have time to dive into. Ongoing, we actually use students on our social media team. So one thing that we're really aware of is that, I'm a 40-year-old adult, many years out of college. And so my perspective on our social media is not going to reflect what our students are really experiencing, which is what we want other students and future students to see, is like, what is it like to be a student here? And I'm not the best person to have that lens. And so we partner with our student life team and students who are already on the teams that work on like campus events, student life events, all those kind of fun things that students get to do. Those students also help us out and kind of work on our social media. So they get paid to do that work. And then again, they have some resume builders to show campaigns that they've built. And we work really closely with them so that what they're doing is aligning with what we're doing at the time. And then we really give a lot of free reign, with some caveats about the appropriateness of content. But, it's really just about, great, show us how you're experiencing the campus. So an example would be like, okay, this week, show us what studying is like for you during COVID. So whatever that means to you, if that means a little video, if that means some photos on Instagram, whatever, like that's just the message we want to talk about this week.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you. And then for you, you're obviously running this office in this position. So can you talk to us a little bit about what your education and training path was, kind of start to finish?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will proudly own that to this day, I am not a person who has ever been able to answer the question, like, what do you want to do in 5 years or 10 years, or what do you want to be when I grow up? So I would say, to all of the students, that's fine. Like, there are some of us that are like that. I know people who are like, oh, I've always wanted to be a doctor, and then they go and be a doctor, and that's awesome. But that's never been me. So, as I look back, kind of a common thread for me, again, was the writing. I was really involved in high school in newspaper. I was in some of our, honors AP English classes. So did a lot of that kind of work. Some of that carried over into college. So I thought I wanted to be a journalist at one point, and actually looked at journalism programs. But when it came time to commit to a college, I was not convinced enough to fully go down the journalism path. And so I ended up going to a school where their journalism degree is wrapped up in communications and public relations. It's kind of a subset of that. So that's what I ended up doing, which was a huge blessing because I was exposed to organizational communication, to a really intense professional communication, like speech class that at the time seemed horrible, but is one of those classes that I have used again and again and again. But that student newspaper piece that I started in high school, I continued to do that in college and was exposed to, a little higher advanced version of that, got to actually, work with some of the press in our local community, got to work with the administration at the school a little bit. So that was hugely valuable. But when I graduated, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I took a little bit of time and I actually served in the Peace Corps. So that picture is myself and some of my cohorts that were in our group together. And that, I could go on a lot about that, but really what that just gave me a little bit of perspective about what was important to me. Learned a lot about, being resourceful, like being creative and resourceful when you're in a spot where you have no choice but to be pretty creative and resourceful. And then when I got back from that, I went through a pretty broad array of things, which oddly enough have all worked their way into the position that I'm in now. So I worked the entry-level marketing job, and I'll tell you right now, if this is a field you go into, you will do that, and it's super valuable. And it's all of the busy work from licking and sealing envelopes to writing copy for a first draft of copy for a postcard, or doing the social media posts, that kind of stuff that is not glamorous work, but really gave me the opportunity to try lots of different aspects of what marketing is. Like, I realized in that I don't care to be a graphic designer. So I need to be in a role where I can work with somebody who's a really good graphic designer, but I can speak the language, right? I can work with her and really work together to try to get what we want out of it. Through a couple of series of events that were out of my control, I actually ended up in the nonprofit world for a little while. And I ran a donor database, which for those of you who don't know is, whenever, if Amy sends me a donation, I have a giant spreadsheet, or a database that's a little fancier, where I put Amy's name and contact information and what she donated to and why and how much. And then later on, I pull out of that database, okay, who gave money to us, last year, and let's send them another mailing, kind of thing. So some of that, again, pretty entry-level work, but skills I have used throughout. And the other thing in nonprofits, for those of you, if you haven't worked or volunteered with a nonprofit, you don't just do one job at a nonprofit, you do everything. And so one of my roles there was to support their events. They had a lot of fundraising events. And all of that, again, kind of led me on some stair steps to where I am now. I also did some administrative support when I started at SPSCC. So I'm coming up on 9 years. It'll be 9 years this spring. And when I started at the college, I worked in their foundation, so on the nonprofit side, and I was an administrative assistant. So I answered phones, I did correspondence, I did all those things, because for me the bottom line was I wanted to get into higher education. I wanted to get into a place where there was more opportunity, and from that I've been able to move up through the college, and so I've been in the role that I'm in now for it'll be going on 6 years. So 5.5 to 6 years. So yeah, I did a lot of things that at the time, didn't make a clear path, didn't seem really connected. But what's been great about it is I've worked for really great bosses, really great supervisors who have helped me kind of connect those dots and move that into opportunities where they're available. So, I just always encourage people, if there's an opportunity that seems interesting for you and you can do it, don't worry about title, don't worry about, how will this look on a resume? Just think about what are those skills gaps that I'm trying to fill? What could I learn here? And is that something I enjoy learning or I want to learn? Because that's really just kind of been the key for me is like I say, I couldn't say, okay, my next step should be this. It's sort of, it's been more like, okay, well, I don't have a lot of experience with crisis communication. So where's a role that I can fill that I can learn that and build those skills and then add that on to the stuff I do know.
Yeah, that's incredible advice and a really great point. As far as how you mentioned, not everything has to always at the beginning of it seem like it connects, but at the end of, where you find your home in your career, all of that will benefit you. So thank you so much for bringing that up for our students, because I think that's a very important message to drive home. I kind of had a similar experience where my pathway wasn't just boom to teaching, but everything that I did was so impactful. And a little on that note, I think the last question I'll ask, and then we'll see any from the students in the Q&A section. You mentioned, obviously, you have had your very unique pathway to get where you're at, but what do your average applicants look like? Where maybe if our students are hearing what you're saying and they're like, oh, that sounds like exactly something I want to try to do. What do your average applicants look like, and what do you look for in that role?
Yeah, that's a really great question. A lot of our applicants have a communication or marketing background, although not all of them have a degree. My strategic communication director, who's actually a Yelm alum, tornadoes, right?
Yes.
Her degree is in interior design.
Oh,
but
wow.
through the work that she's done, she had a really strong social media background. Excuse me. She had kind of done some of what I did in terms of just kind of moving up through those various marketing skills. And really, the common thing that we look for is communication. How strong is their written communication? How much can they understand and put themselves in the mindset of other people? So, I guess empathy is the right word for it, is that can you understand where other people are coming from? I did not go to a community college. Where I grew up at the time, we didn't even have a solid community college. So when I started at SPSCC, I had no idea what that meant in the higher ed landscape. I had no idea what that meant to the community, really. Mm-hmm. But being able to ask questions, listen, and really work through some of that information has been really key to what I've been able to do there. So yeah, communication skills, and I mean that really broadly. It is the listening skills. It's the, could you go sit down with a nursing faculty and come back and write a solid story about what a journey through our nursing pathway, because that doesn't mean you're an expert in nursing. And I think that's a big thing to know too, is that I can't think of a time that I've hired someone that they had all of the expertise and all of the knowledge they were going to need to know for that job. It was about, have they shown that they can learn it? Have they shown growth? Have they shown that they want to grow? And that's really been key, because like for me, and there's not that many people with higher ed experience. So if I said I only want someone with higher ed marketing experience, it just would limit it so much. But it's like, if what matters to me is, critical thinking, the ability to be strategic, the ability to be a good listener, the ability to be a strong writer, well, that's a really broad set of skills. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I'm wondering, Ms. Palmer, do we have any student questions? We've got about 5 minutes left of our time, so I want to make sure that we check on that.
No, I have not seen any questions yet.
And I have it on my end. I just
And
wanted,
we have quite a few participants, so that's been really nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you all are my TechCom kids, so thank you for being here. And then I guess if we have no questions here, I will leave with the question, what are kind of your last thoughts that you can tell my students? A lot of them are freshmen moving forward.
Sure.
If what you said really resonated with them, what can they take with them over the next 3.5 years to best prepare for life after high school?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the things I said, and you already commented on it around, not necessarily worrying if what you can't see the end as, right? If you can't see the next steps, but if what you're doing is rewarding, like when I was in college and I was doing communication work, again, I couldn't have told you what I was going to do with that. But what I knew was that every day in class, I was really engaged. I loved what I was learning. I loved my faculty. Homework still felt like homework, don't get me wrong, but I just knew when I was in those classes that whatever, wherever my path was going to take me, that was something that I was at least in the right space. So I think, being able to trust yourself a little bit to know, there was a time in my life I was sure I was going to be a marine biologist. And then I took an advanced biology class and I was like, why would I put myself through this? So not being afraid to recognize that, that's a possibility. But I think also, high school is the perfect time to try some of that stuff, right? I joined the newspaper staff because my big brother was on the newspaper staff. I hadn't done it up till then. And that was really something that ended up kind of shaping a lot of where I went. I tried a couple of sports. I'm not particularly athletic, but I still learned things from those. So I think taking advantage of some of those opportunities and being willing to take the risk when there's some uncomfortable stuff. So that's what I would say is to kind of trust yourself. I would love to, if we have a couple of minutes, I did have just like a couple things of show and tell of some of the more fun aspects of my work.
Yes, we'd love to see it.
So that is one of the biggest benefits of working in marketing, is that we get to do some of the really fun stuff. So all of the swag, right? Every time you get a pen with our name on it or whatever, like that all comes out of our office, t-shirts, all that stuff. It's super fun. And then every now and again, we just get sort of off the wall projects that you just would never expect. So this slide is some of our, more expected things. So this is a billboard that we're about to have up. Like I said, we do our print pieces, our catalog, our newsletter. But certain things. So this is some of my team. So this is Katie. She's the Yelm alum. This is our videographer. This is Riley, was a student with us for a while. Actually ended up working for us for over a year. He was amazing and did amazing writing work. And then was able to go on to UW. So, and then this is our graphic designer, Nasheen, here at the bottom. And this was our brand launch. So a super fun, like we had this new brand, what can we do to celebrate it? So we got to plan this really big, really loud event. We got to come up with how we, the big reveal of how we were going to do the brand. So stuff like that, it just really, breaks up. There are jobs that I think would just be way too monotonous for me. And this kind of stuff is just really fun. We do get to plan a lot of aspects of our graduation. So, that means something different to students, but for us, there's a lot that goes into that. Concerts, that kind of stuff. But this next slide is kind of the big one, is that it's not too often that you get to be involved in the launch of a new mascot. So SPSCC, we are the Clippers, but that's a boat. So that's not very exciting. So our students a few years ago said, we want like the character mascot, who will be at sporting events, who will be at college fairs. And we've worked with them through this process that in the end will be about 2 years to develop and introduce Percy the Kraken. So this is Percy, but getting to work through things like working with an illustrator on all the different poses that we want images of Percy in. We got to wrap some vans. We're just now starting to work on swag. We're starting to work on what are our launch videos going to look like. All those kinds of things that are just super fun and unexpected. And to be the people in the college who get to work on that is really cool. So that's my plug for what's most fun about marketing.
Well, that is awesome and incredible and totally up my alley. So I am very thankful that I was able to be your moderator today. Kelly, thank you again for taking the time to share your career and advice with us today. I think our students are really going to benefit from hearing from you.
Yeah, I do see one question in the chat. Do we have time for that?
There it is.
Yes, we do. We have just enough time for that, and that'll be it though.
Okay. So what is your suggestion into getting into a career designing clothes and such? So I'm not sure if you have any information on that, but just a general design.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think with anything, what you want to start doing a little bit, is connecting with folks who do that. Even in my career now, I will call up folks who I feel like have an interesting job and do what's called an informational interview. And I've done this. I'm always willing to do this. And most folks I know are, like a lot of professionals that I know, to just say, hey, I want to learn more about your job. And you go sit with them for an hour. And that not only gives you kind of a connection, just somebody to talk to and bounce questions off of, but gives you an idea of what the path for them look like. So that's what I would say is, find somebody who works in or around that career and just talk to them about what their path was like. And you're not asking for anything other than time, right? That doesn't mean you're going in asking for a job or an internship or whatever. But it's just, hey, tell me your story. And who doesn't love talking about themselves and how they got where they are?
Absolutely. Very good. Thank you. Well, I think that's our time for today.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording right now and go ahead and sign off if you like. Thank you very much for being here, Kelly.
Yeah,
and
thank
Amy,
you for having
thank
me.
you for moderating this.
Yes, absolutely. It was a great time.
Very interesting stuff.